office. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you for watching over for me. All right, community choice aggregation, CCAs, enable communities to purchase electricity and actually then divert the operating revenues, okay, to local community investment. So rather than like with a investor-owned utility, actually what happens is that with an investor-owned utility, that money goes to shareholders. When a city or county chooses to have a CCA come into their city or county, then what happens is that revenues actually stay local. And so as a public agency, our mission is to support residents and businesses with more energy options and to drive economic development. And so, so somebody, actually, Jenna, do you want everything in the Q&A rather than the chat box?
Yes, I would like all of the questions to go into the Q&A, and we'll save the chat box for sharing links out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now that you're here, you get to do what you want to do. Thank you. All right. There's a question in the chat box since we're going to go to Q&A. What is NEM? It's called net energy metering. And so when you have a solar system, you must be tied to the grid. That solar system gets a permission to operate from the utility. And then that is actually your contract with you're tied to the grid, and that's your contract to be able to push and pull energy into the grid. All solar systems are required in California to be tied to the grid. And so net energy metering is another term. So when you see NEM, N-E-M, it actually means your meter is actually sending energy back and forth. So that's the simplest version of it, okay? So did you know that actually CCAs, there's actually 24 CCAs now? And so legislation they were started in 2002. California was not the first state to do it. There's actually CCAs back on the East Coast. The first one began in Marin, and it took them years to actually become viable, or actually to get they put their plan together and be able to become a CCA. And so now what's happening is CCAs in the state demonstrate the success of the model. And you see that there's, in PG&E territory alone, I think there's 13 different CCAs that serve customers. So the first CCA began serving 40,000 customers, and now you look at 11 million electricity customers. And so we're a positive force in the communities because we keep the revenue local, and we also look for more transparency and also rate stability. So our organization, Central Coast Community Energy, was committed and formed in 2018. And we promote long-term rate stability and energy security while reducing reliance on fossil fuels. And our goal is to stimulate the local economy. So how does a CCA work? Whoop, that was to get that to move. CCAs actually offer an opportunity for communities to join together. They actually ask to join. Usually it's the city boundary or the county boundary when they join. And then everybody in that area comes in usually a year later. So there's a public hearing at the city or so level, and then about a year later, you come into service. So we actually buy power for our customers, and we're not buying from PG&E. We're not a middleman. We actually buy in the same market that PG&E and the other utilities do. Most people don't know that there's more than 2,000 energy providers in the state of California where all of us buy energy from. And so we're all buying in the same market. And because of our size and our fiscal responsibility, we're actually able to buy contracts, really good contracts, just like a utility. So we actually buy power for the customers and deliver it over the existing transmission lines as a cleaner, competitive alternative to your existing utility. And so when a city or county joins, they actually get more control over what kind of electricity is provided, but also the economic and environmental benefits are brought into the community. And so because we procure the energy, which is delivered over Edison and PG&E's lines, we partner with the local utility. And so, but our revenue stays local, and which keeps our electricity rates lower for customers while also funding our energy programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. In our service area, we serve 33 jurisdictions, which is actually made up of cities and counties across the Central Coast. This means we provide electricity generation. Think about it as of electrons for all of these communities. So from Santa Cruz to Santa Barbara, our footprint makes us the largest CCA in California. And by energy use, we are the 5th largest CCA in California. And as you look at the map, you'll see that the only, we just enrolled the city of Buellton as of January of this year, and the city of Atascadero just voted to join us, and they will come into service in early 2024. So that leaves the only piece that we don't serve is actually the unincorporated area of SLO, or San Luis Obispo, another acronym, sorry. So what to expect from us? Local choice. You have a choice and a voice when it comes to your electricity service. We're the first CCA in California to receive the S&P Financial A rating. 4 CCAs now have the A rating, but we were the first one to get it. When we started in 2018, we had a $5 million loan. That loan was paid back in the first 6 months, and this all speaks to our financial stability. We procure energy at the contracts at the most competitive prices by capitalizing on the market due to our size, geographic size. And the other thing we're very proud of is our customers have saved more than $550 million in bill savings by preferring to be our customer with PG&E or Edison. So this is our goal, 60% clean and renewable by 2025, 5 years ahead of what the state tells us all we have to do, and 100% clean and renewable by 2030. So that is 15 years ahead of the goal. And so these contracts are long-term agreements, most which are 15, 20, or 30 years longer, and they've been coming online providing power. And these contracts are signed, so we have the contract signed already for our 60%, so we already know we're there. And we are actually now working on our remaining contracts for the last 100%. Our 100% clean pathway includes solar, wind, geothermal, small hydro, and biomass. So just as there's talks about the duck curve and solar and how it affects the market, we make sure that our pathway includes a variety of assets so that we actually continue to make sure that energy moves into the market. And so some helpful definitions. Someone asked earlier about NEM. The things that there are a couple of that I would like to pay attention to is a net user, or we call under generating. That means that you actually pull more energy from the grid than your system creates each month. Or a net generator, and a net generator is where your system is bigger. Let's say you put solar on a few years ago and your kids have now moved from home, and you're actually generating and producing more energy than you use. That can move back and forth during the month. Sometimes we get less sun in the wintertime and such, but what happens is we have predominantly net under generators and over generators is the terms that we use in this market. So how many customers? 37,000 active customers across the Central Coast, and the number continues to rise. 335 of those are agriculture customers. And what most people don't know is in the Central Coast, 30% of the accounts are actually agriculture accounts. So very, very vibrant and very different community. A large set of commercial customers up and down the coast. And as with any CCA, the bulk customers are always the residential market, okay? And so what are we doing today? If you're a wind, solar, and or battery storage customer, we've transitioned to monthly billing as of January of this year, okay? And so the reason I'm showing these numbers on the screen is that almost every one of our agriculture customers are already on monthly billing, and the bulk of our commercial customers are also on monthly billing. And so what's important to know is just like time of use, how the state of California wants us to pay attention about how we use our energy, the state is looking and the utilities are continuing to push everybody into a monthly billing. So right now what we're hearing in, let's say, PG&E territory, when you go online with your new PG&E, with your new solar system, you're actually being placed into monthly billing with no choice at all. And so this is being done as so that that you can be really clear each month about how you use your energy, just like they set the time of use into play, you know, between like 4 and 9 or 5 and 9. And so there's an awareness of energy usage. You as solar customers, I would say that the bulk of you always look at your bills as they come through. You know what's happening, and so you're actually more aware of than your neighbors are. All right, Bruce, you just dropped a question in the chat box. Would you do me a favor and put it in the Q&A so that Jenna can help you answer it? Okay. All right. And so you've already received notices. So what happens is if the enrollment occurs, let's say in January, and shows up on in December and shows up on your January bill, what happens is we do notices a couple months before that always are in your bill, and then we do notices after. And so all of our NEM customers are shifting, all new and existing customers are being shifted to monthly billing. So here's an example of the historic or the current, what used to be the current billing structure. All right. And so you were billed annually for your electricity usage. What I want to say is that 95% of the NEM customers or solar customers use more electricity in a month than they generate. Only 5% of the customers actually overgenerate or actually put more back into the grid. And so what happens is your usage is documented each month on your bill, but payment was not required in the old system. And then once a year, usually when you got your permission to operate in August or July or December, then your annual usage is calculated and your account is trued up. This will continue on your monthly billing. And so I do also say hold on a minute. When a customer, another example is how things continue to shift is when a customer comes to us, like a NEM customer, and comes into our service, the local utility requests to be trued up. And so then that starts the new service with the CCA partnership with the utility. So if you're, let's say, solely PG&E or Edison, and you come into CCA service as a NEM customer, you get a true up at that time. So this is not new to our industry. It's just something that we're making sure that everybody is aware of. That's the reason for these webinars. Okay. And for those that generate more than they use each, or what I said, the overgenerators, you end up with something called an NSC, net surplus compensation. Okay. And that net surplus compensation can be used the next year for next year's energy costs, or you can also request a check. And so that's in the slide, we'll show that. But if you're a residential customer and you have more than $200 in NSC, then what happens is you can actually ask for a check. You call us and ask for a check, or it shows up in your bill and you can use it for the next year. So that's how it continues to show up on your bill. Your NEM agreement or your solar agreement is with PG&E or an Edison is not changing. And so if you're in legacy, let's say NEM 1.0, it's not changing, okay? And so the early adopters are under NEM 1.0 and you can still remain with your legacy rate. I always say to everybody, pay attention when the bills come in and such, because there's always been this shift to continue to put everyone in time of use and to shift everybody from NEM to the newer rates and stuff. But as early adopters and as those who chose to put the solar in, I always say pay attention to what comes in your bills, because you want to make sure that you can keep your legacy rates. And that's one of the things is we don't set rates. The CCAs in California are not the rate setters. The rates are set by we'll talk about that in a minute. The rates are set by the utilities, and then the CPUC approves them. And then most CCAs in the state of California do an IOU less a discount. Okay, so that's how rates are normally set in California. As a solar company, as a solar user and owner, what happens is you know how that moves back and forth. And so you pay attention, and you really pay attention to your rates. All right, so in 2022, which is this year, NSC is halfway between retail and wholesale rates. And so our NSC for PG&E customers is 4.7 cents. So it's 0.047. Okay, so 4.7 cents. And our NSC for Edison customers is 0.42. Okay. All right, and you can read stuff in the, Jenna is actually putting notes in the chat box for all of us. Okay, that's why we're moved everybody to Q&A. And so you can actually clip and snip stuff out of the chat box as she's explaining different kinds of acronyms, and she's explaining how rates are set. So she's enhancing my conversation, which is great. Thank you, Jenna. All right, so this is the monthly billing structure that we put into place in January. And so if you use more than you generate, or if you're under generator, you will now see a payment due each month. But what this means is that you will not have a large annual gen charge due at your annual true up. So let's say in my true up is in June, what'll happen is everything gets balanced, got balanced in December, okay? And so what happens is starting in January, you're going to see a little bit of gen costs on your bill, but that means when your annual true up comes up, you're not going to see a large, big number that you actually have to write a check for. So that's one of the reasons why everyone across the state is kind of shifting it, especially with the COVID for the last couple of years, is to allow you to actually really maintain and manage your bills and your utility at this time. All right, so if you over-generate each month, there is no monthly payment. And I'm going to show some bill examples. The credit that you generate that month is applied to the next month's bill. And remember, whether you over or under generate, you do have an annual true up. All right, so CCE, our charges, here we go again, CCCE, that's our acronym. Charges, Central Coast Community Energy charges show up on the first page of your bill. You still only get one electric bill because we partner with PG&E or Edison. They do all the billing, they do the meters, and they do the grid. And then we actually do the electricity and put that into the grid. So you still only receive one electric bill, depending on PG&E or Edison, depending on where you live in the Central Coast. The generation charges are billed by us and show up as a new separate line item. So usually on page 1 where you're looking, you'll see now you see Central Coast gen charges here, okay? And you'll see the split. Usually it's about 30 to 40% is the gen, and everything else is actually the PG&E side or the Edison charge side of the bill. So we're only a portion of the bill. And we actually, because we don't set rates, we actually match all the rate tariffs in these territories, and that includes residential and commercial rates. So your NEM agreements with utilities don't change. All right, and so here's an example of a bill. All my bills are PG&E, so be patient with me on this. This is an example for the 90% of the customers who want to generate, which means they pull, okay, this is what your monthly bill used to look like. And so you were seeing how much you had generated over here on this side, but you actually saw 0. So this is what would happen is see, this is the PG&E bill, but in here you would see us show up as a specific page in the bill. So you could tell, I know the slide's blurry. Thanks, Janet. I know. I need to make it a little tighter, don't I? So what happens is you kept seeing 0 on your bill, right? Until you're true up. All right. And the next example is this is an example of what you used to see in your annual true up. So some of the bills have other pages that continue to true up, but here you're going to see that this customer is starting to have over $1,000 due in energy just for the true up. Okay, so this is customers who undergenerate, or 95% of the customers. All right, this is an example of what you see now for your January, February, March bills and such. Okay, we charge for the electricity, so this is actually it's a little less blurry slide, and you'll see here where the charges are. And so this is what happens when you shift to monthly billing. You'll see a single page with the charges in here, and it's the same information you had before. All right, but what you see is actually the dollar amount due, and so that is the gen side of the bill only. Okay. All right, and so this is how you would see the first page of the bill is where you would actually see the delivery charges. So now the minimum on a solar account is about either $9.98 or $10. So you'd see the PG&E charge of, let's say, $10, and then you'd see the electrical generation charges. Okay. The reason the number is 29 is because the individual had gas on this bill also. So I didn't do my math wrong. I just didn't fix the $29. All right. And the other thing I want to say is some very important to note that you continue to see the utilities monthly minimum. So this $9.96 on this bill, okay, minimum charge is actually, remember, the utility does the meter and maintains the grid. And so each solar system is tied to the grid. And this is what the utility charges for minimum delivery or to be tied to the grid. Okay. And so the utility handles transmission, distribution, and that's why they charge this fee. Now, if you're an over generator, the 5% that's an over generator at the end of the year, when you get the true up, what'll happen is then you can start using that NSC towards this $10 a month. But it won't happen this year as we're going through this process. All right. So if you are the 5% of over generators, this is what the old bill used to look, not old bill, but the previous bill, like December or before last year, this is what it used to look like. And so you see that there was a credit balance showing up, okay? You don't get a check. This stuff is just all adding up, right? But it shows how much you overgenerate, and that's collecting in the bucket each month, all right? And this is an example of how your NEM charges were actually true and collecting on the bill also. So you just see it keep growing up. And so in December of this year, what will happen is all this here, all this numbers, what you've actually collected or overgenerated, then will be trued up, right? And turned into net surplus compensation. And then what happens is this will turn, as with every annual true up, this will turn into a zero again. And then you'll start adding up all the numbers again. And so remember, if you under and over generate, what happens is let's say this is in February. Let's say it was actually maybe in April and you had a big party or a big family staying for a while. If you used energy, then this number, it would come out of this number. Okay, so you know how to read these bills. They're consistent of what they used to be. All right. And so I talked about this before, okay, it's about the consistency of that minimum monthly fee. So that happens, that still happens. That is part of the utility IOU side of the bill. All right. So here's an example of, we used to be called 3CE. We actually are CCE now, but I didn't fix this slide. But you can see Central Coast. And here is an example of what happens is how the NSC, so the net surplus compensation, okay, everything gets zeroed out, and so the balance is now here. Because it's under $200 for a residential customer, this stays on the bill, and then the next month you could be using it. So if you want a check, you need to ask for a check. You just call up the call center, the number's on the bill, and commercial customers, their threshold to get a check is $500. We have a lot of ag, as I indicated earlier, and those ag customers have a lot of solar across the Central Coast. All right, so what to expect? You're still going to single bill, nothing changes. We still show up as a page in the bill, okay? And our charges always show up in the bill. You'll always see us in the bill, so you'll know you're being served by us. And then we match, as I said before, the rate tariffs. Tariffs, that's our term for what a rate or how much you get charged, a rate tariff. We match, including the legacy rates. All right, and so we bill just for electricity, PG&E bills for everything else. And what we do is when we partner with the utilities, we have strict privacy rules. And so we adhere to that same level of strict data privacy and making sure that everyone's data is safe. So this is actually our website where you can find more information. We're currently in the process of updating our website, making it cleaner and simpler to actually find things. But if you actually, this will be included in the PDF when we share it out. And actually Jenna put it in the chat box. Thank you, Jenna, for if you want more information. All right. The last piece here is that so there are rate assistance programs They're called CARE, FERA, or medical baseline. So they don't change at all. Those programs are established at the utility. They're managed by PG&E or Edison. Okay, but the thing is they're available to whether you're served by just PG&E or served by both of us. Okay, and so if you don't know about these, take a look at the website information that's here and go take a look. Okay, and so if you want to enroll, let's say you qualify for, let's say, medical baseline, your enrollment still must be done through the utility. And so the number on your bill, you call them up and say, hey, I qualify for this program. So the CARE program offers a monthly discount of 20% or more on gas and electricity. And the FERA program is just like that, but it offers a discount of 18% on electricity. And for a FERA, you must be a household of 3 or more. The medical baseline program, all residential customers get an allotment of energy each month at the lowest price that's available. And it's called a baseline allotment. And so if you're eligible, you actually, again, reach out to the utility and sign up for that. And we want to make sure that you get everything that you can get access to. Okay. And so this is to ensure that the energy is available at the lower rate. So we support qualifying medical devices and families with medical needs. That's specifically what this program is based on. And since this is not an energy program conversation, but I really want to talk about the benefits of being served by both of us, is the fact that you're served by PG&E or Edison and with us. And so what happens is there's a real focus on, electric vehicles across the state of California right now. And so this is one of our programs, and we take our revenue, operational revenue, and we actually pay for power. That's the biggest amount of what we pay. But then we turn it back into the local communities and create programs that we call stackable. So here's an example of our program. We've had this type of program for a few years, but we continue to work on it and make it better. And so let's say you wanted to lease or buy a new electric vehicle or a used one, okay? But you didn't actually have the panel in your garage. So what happens is you can actually do EV readiness, which is part of this bucket, and you can actually pay to put the panel in your garage so you can get your EV charger plugged into your garage. Or maybe you want to actually buy your electric vehicle and you've got a charger station at work and such. And so then, you can charge it there. So there's 4 buckets in this program. And the other buckets are think about electric motorcycles and then also e-bikes. As a beach Central Coast community, we have lots and lots and lots of e-bikes. And so we have rebates for e-bikes. So the website is at the bottom of the slide. And then if you're a business owner, let's say you have solar on your house and you're listening to us today, but you also have a business in the city of Santa Maria, and you're interested in putting in chargers in front of your business so that you can actually make sure everybody can, to pull some more business in. So what you actually want to do is chargers. So we give rebates on the chargers and the labor on the chargers. And so it's both the physical charger and the labor materials for the cost of installation. So this is just an example of one of the programs that we create. And so, if when you go to our website and you type in our energy programs, you'll see our energy programs in there. All right. So now we're in the Q&A session. I'm going to sneak forward for just a moment to show this slide, okay? And a bit of information before I go back. So I'm just going to leave this slide up. And so I want to say tonight's webinar is being recorded. We post these on our website, okay? So we actually will have this same webinar on Thursday at 6 p.m., but it'll actually be in Spanish because we want to make sure we get to talk to a whole range of customers. And so we take both of them and we post them on our website. Now, I talked earlier about saying that we have a call center. Our call center knows lots of information. And so if you have a question that we can't answer tonight, or you want them to look at your bill, please call the call center. If they can't answer that question, that information comes back to people like Jenna and I, and then we pick up the phone and have a personal conversation with you. That's because NEM systems, solar systems, are very unique. We call them one-offs because it really depends on how you use it and how you built it. And so we want to make sure we get you the correct information. All right, so that is enough of the presentation from my end. So we're going to now go back into Q&A. And Jenna, will you help start with the Q&A?
Yes, absolutely. So could you start with explaining how monthly billing will interface with the annual true up that customers will receive from SCE or PG&E?
Okay, it's a great question. Okay, so we trued everybody up when all the NEM customers moved into CCA service. Everybody got trued up in December, okay? And so we're the electricity side of the bill. But you may have your annual true up may have been, let's say it's in June, okay? You can actually reach out to the PG&E or Edison and say, Edison, my gen is now trued up as of December. I would like to move and have both my Edison, my PG&E and my CCA true up on the same day. You're allowed to ask the utility to do that so that it all happens at once, okay? And so that's our goal. So what we've done is everyone came in December and we started showing up on the bill in January. And then what will happen is every December we will true up on the gen side of the bill. And so we're hoping the things start to align, that you can pick up the phone and call the call center, and that'll make it easier for you to actually truly align your bill all across everything that you get served.
Thank you, Susan. Now, could you talk about rate tariffs? So for example, Jam said that when you were showing the bill, that their generation charges are actually larger than the bill example that you showed. And we have a customer asking also about time of use. So could you talk about rate tariffs?
Okay. All right, let's talk about time of use first, okay? So time of use, because you on this webinar and me, who happens to have a solar system, were early adopters, we started really changing the market and how energy moved during the course of the day. And so what happened is the Public Utility Commission started to say that they're going to put into time of use, because they want actually the energy to be priced at what time of the day do you use it, okay? And so there's usually peak, which is usually 4 to 9, which of course is when you're home and your kids got the TV on and stuff. And then of course it's the most expensive time of the day. But that's set up because the solar systems are starting to decline and not generate as much energy. And so they say that the cost of energy is more expensive. For people that have EVs, they know that to set their EV system and start charging their EV at like midnight or 11 o'clock at night, because that's the super off-peak or off-peak system time, and that's when you get the cheapest rate. So you start charging your car at the cheapest rate. So when you look at your bill and you flip through your bill, there's summer and there's winter, but there's almost always time of use in those buckets. And so the time of use is very important to pay attention to, because how you use energy, you know, they say, well, turn your dryer or your washer on at, 9 o'clock at night after time of use. So because you're aware of your energy, you can start seeing how you can change it. And because your bills come now every month, you can really see how you can affect it. So now let's talk about rates. In PG&E territory alone, there's 75 different rates for all the different customers, from electric vehicles to commercial to the huge ag, to the coolers for all the ag, to the military bases. I mean, it's just this amazing array of rates. Your rate is set by the utility, PG&E and Edison, based upon how much energy you use. What most people don't know is you can actually pick up the call and call at PG&E's call center and say, hey, talk to me about rates and how I might be able to save some money. You can actually move stuff around a little bit. You can look at different rates. And some of our, let's say, cities and others that also we have accounts with actually do that on a regular basis, figuring out what's the best rate for their wastewater treatment plant, or what's the best rate for their office building. And so rates are specific to usage, and then they have all sorts of other amazing rules to them, okay? I mean, just fascinating rules. And so that's another whole business in itself. We used to, okay, actually set our rates and then based upon what PG&E's rates or Edison's were, and then discount them. Now what's happening up north in our north, tri-north, not down in Edison, but up north, we're starting to shift our rates a bit and be much more cost effective, even more than we were before. But that's not what the conversation tonight is about. Our conversation tonight is about the solar system and our shift to monthly billing. So again, if you have questions, feel free to call PG&E, their call center, and talk to them about rates. If you want more information, you know, when we share the PDF out with you and you have a specific rate that you're curious about, please feel free to ask us. We'll happily talk to you about it.
Thanks, Susan. So I'm going to hope that that answered the question. We had one customer asking if our rates were higher than SCE's. So we take SCE's rates and subtract a 2% discount. And then I also have two people here who did not receive a bill since December 15th until most recently. So these two customers, I'm going to assume that you are in Southern California Edison. They had a billing error in late December. And so if that was not the case, if you are a PG&E customer, then I would like for you to please call the call center, because we're not aware of any billing errors in late December for our PG&E customers. So I'll just leave that little comment there. We do have one person, so a couple questions about NEM 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. So could you explain, so we have people asking if they change their system, if they'll lose their NEM 2.0 status.
That's a great question. And that's actually a question I just dug into this last couple of weeks. Okay, so NEM 1.0 was the original agreement, okay, and program set up. And under NEM 0.0, it was mostly on tiering. So you usually had 3 tiers, tier 1, 2, or 3. And so most customers stayed in tier 1. Sometimes you're into tier 2, but if they were way out of control, it went into tier 3, and that was really, really expensive, okay? That's considered a legacy rate, okay? And so what happened was as solar was being installed across the California and the different utilities, NEM there was a cap on NEM 1.0. And when those caps were reached, then what happened was you got booted into NEM 2.0. And so there was quite a flurry to try to get solar put in on NEM 1.0 because it had a lot of different unusual benefits. And it was grandfathered for up to 20 years. So if you were installed in, let's say, 2014 on your residence, you were grandfathered for 20 years. So when I talk about legacy rates, that's what I mean, is that legacy rate that you can be in. Now, what happened is as the state continued to shift into time of use, and it became more and more and more focused, and commercial businesses and industrial businesses shifted into time of use years ago. And the residential shift into time of use is PG&E did it in October of this year, which is why you saw your bills, it show up on your bills in October. And then in Edison, it actually is occurring in April in our territory. And so it's been happening in buckets across the state of California. And so NEM 2.0 has been all about time of use. There is no legacy or tiering allowed under that. And the grandfathering was different. And there's been a lot of kind of movement on the 2.0. And you'll notice as solar customers, especially if you purchased it, you hear a lot of conversation, especially in the last year or two, about NEM 3.0, or as they've renamed it, NEM Revisited, okay? Because the conversation is saying that the low-income customers and the middle-income customers who don't have solar are paying for our systems. And so that's what the studies have indicated. And so there's been a very public push across the state of California to move and shift and rewrite the NEM contract. We thought it was going to actually happen to occur like last year, and then the commission backed away from it. When it'll occur, I think it'll come here someday. I think there will continue to be conversations about it. And so that's what you want to pay attention to. That's why I made the comment earlier about is if you have something in your bill and you're a legacy rate, and they want to shift you to time of use, so they want to shift you into a different rate. Pay attention. You under legacy, you can stay under that legacy tiering. So let's take it apart a tiny bit more, okay? The NEM 1.0 legacy is not tied to your rate. So if your rate is let's say an E1, and they want to move you to an E2 because of your usage, you can still keep your NEM 1.0, but you will move your rate from an E1 to an E2. So the rate tariffs are not hooked to that NEM. NEM is an agreement with a permission to operate into the grid system. It's not specifically tied to your rate. And that's what you always want to pay attention to. And so my thought is we're all going to be moved. Eventually the 1.0 is the grandfathering will end, and we will all be shifted into time of use. That's what's happening. And then we'll all be, I think, under one program, but we're not there today. So you're asking a really complex question, and you guys always ask really complex questions. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Susan. We have a number of customers wondering why we chose December for our true up month. If you could talk about how monthly billing will work given the different seasons.
I actually don't know the answer of why they choose December, to be truthful. Since I'm not the CEO or CFO and stuff, so I don't actually know how to answer that question. But December was the month chosen, and they chose to move them all in because, again, it's what did I say, 40,000 customers, and so that's a percentage of our customers, and so they decided to move most of them all at once. But like I said before, our commercial and our ag customers are already in monthly, so the system's already set up. And as the state moves us into time of use, the thought was to move everybody into monthly billing too. So that was some of the framing of how we thought about doing that.
Okay, so this question is, before the end of your true up during the summer, for example, at what rate is overgeneration credited on the bill? Is this credit applicable to the PG&E or SCE portion of the bill, or only to 3CE's portion on the next month?
Okay, great question. Now see how detailed we get on the questions? Okay, so what happens is on a month to month, it's retail to retail. So what's happening is if you overgenerate and you have a $20 credit on the bill for, let's say, January, okay, then what happens is you can use that credit against anything that you use in February. So that is a retail to retail. The NSC, that's why it's got its own little name, NSC, net surplus compensation, is when the utilities and the CCAs take that true up number for how much you've pulled and pushed and what is the end bucket result number, right, of that number. The NSC is paid at a different rate. And so that's when that shows up on your bill. And so here's what happens with debits, and here's what happens and how you can use it. Right now, during the rest of this year, if you overgenerate, then you use it next month, okay? And what will happen is in December, if you're one of the 95% who undergenerate, then you're going to pay, okay, well, you've been paying every month, so you're not going to pay a big bill in December. If you're an over 5% over generator, you're going to get that true up, and there's going to be the NSC. That NSC will be transferred to your January bill, and you can use it on both sides of the bill at that point. You'll be able to use it both on the minimum charges from the PG&E or Edison side, and also on our charges. so that that NSC can be used all during the time next year as you operate. So if you have an NSC and you continue to overgenerate, you just continue to build more credits and build more credits and build more credits at retail rates, and then you get another true up come December of 2023.
Thanks, Susan. We had a couple questions about our programs. One person asked if we have any rebates for battery storage, so I thought I would just share with everyone that we don't have a rebate program for battery storage at this time, only for electric vehicle chargers and any electrical work that might be needed to update the panel for electric vehicle chargers. We do have someone asking if there's a special rate for EVs and if getting an EV triggers a separate meter.
So EV does not trigger a separate meter. And if I was getting an EV, I would make sure to look at my panels, because most houses have a 100 amp panel and you may want more, but you know that if you had a solar system, you heard that from the solar contractor. And so there was one more part of that question. I didn't answer that. What was the first part of the question again?
If there's a special EV rate.
The answer is yes. And so that's why I would say pick up the phone and call PG&E, because remember they set the rates, and tell them that you're going to buy or lease a vehicle and talk them through that kind of stuff. And they'll tell you what the EV rates are. The answer is yes, very specific rates. And then you get you plug it in and charge it, and they come with software so that you can charge it at the right time. So that's when you really have a fun conversation about time of use and when should I charge it and things like that. We have a question in, oh, thank you for answering that question, Jenna. All right.
Sure, I'll just share with everyone. The question was how to view this recording after the fact, and it will be posted to our YouTube channel within a week. That's an easier place to find it than on our website, although I believe we will be posting it on our website also.
And I didn't answer, I remember the last part of that one question was somebody said the numbers that I showed on the bill were not that big, and she's very correct. Okay, she or he, whoever made that comment. Each house is its own kind of little system and how you use energy. So I'll give you an example. We have a customer who is an oil and gas customer. He's a very big account, and they spend $1 million a month in electricity for the different locations. That's how much they spend, and they have solar and such. And so they really pay attention to their bills and have everything in their software system and stuff. And so you are correct. It really depends on how big is the system, how big is your house, where you are in the climate. Are you coastal with lots of, fog and weather? Are you further inland where it's warmer, more sun? So, again, I love these conversations, these questions, because they really are unique to what you built your system. And so you're right. The bill was tiny compared to what some of us see.
Okay, great. We have a few more minutes. A lot of questions left, everyone, so I'm just trying to find the ones that are most relevant to the largest group of people. So we do have someone asking why our generation rates have increased and what we're doing with the quote extra money that we are collecting.
So, you know what, like I said, you guys always ask the hardest questions. Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. Okay, so years ago, when the state mandated, the commission mandated that the utilities start actually having more renewables, solar contracts were being signed at like $200 to $250 a kilowatt. Solar contracts now, let's say if a solar farm was built in, let's say, King City or something, okay, and we bought power from them, solar contracts now can be bought at like $20, okay? And so that's how the market has shifted. That's how you people have changed the market over time with solar. And it becomes so cost effective. But we also know it's made effective changes in in the duck curve. And so, battery storage has been the newest for years and now is starting to actually get more affordable. And so there's this whole range of assets that fit into this. And so what's happened in the last few years is, I'll give an example, is that, let's say, I have a slide that shows PG&E. Rates used to change. We used to have no competition. We used to have just the local utilities, and they served all us. They're 4 in California, and they served all of us. And then CCAs came into play, in 2010. And the commission did it on purpose to push and create some more competition for rates and for keeping the money local and such. And so it's been effective because so many customers now choose to be served by both the utility and the CCA. All right. And so what happened is that the utilities over time now, because of the still having the older contracts, they actually shift their rates every quarter. And so when we were tying our rates and saying if PG&E's rate was 6 cents and ours was discounted, then in April they change it again. And so as a CCA, you have to be really nimble because we were IOU rates less a discount. All right. And then Texas hit last year, and Texas is an unregulated market, not like California. And Texas scared the bejesus out of everybody, okay? And customers were seeing $1,000 bills for a month. I mean, it was a horrific market crash. California market's not like that, but we also have to pay attention that we're a nation, and those things kind of show up in other ways. And so what you see is your bills continuing to increase. Power is getting more expensive to purchase. In fact, I think I heard a comment this morning that we don't do gas, but on the gas side, gas prices have gone up 40% in the last year. And so and I'm talking about natural gas, not gasoline for the car. Those, I don't even want to talk about that one. But, we're seeing everything shift in rates and move and change over time. And so the honest answer to your question is remember, we partner with the utility, and the utility does the grid and all the other pieces, and the state mandates that they have the wildlife programs and all the other things. And so you see all that on your bill. But by being served by both of us, we start to unfold the bill a bit, and you start to understand that 40% of your bill is electricity, which we get at the best rates, and then we give you that discount. We don't actually give any shareholders that discount. And then what happens is the rest of that is all the infrastructure in California and all the programs in California. And we can't fix those. I can't fix those today. I mean, that's the part. We actually have legislative and policy people that push back on stuff. But there is an awareness that there's actually something happening in the commission right now about how rates have moved too much. That's too expensive. What does that mean? I don't know. But you, as again, early adopters, always ask these interesting questions about how does this unfold? And so as a CCA, our goal is to be more transparent and to say, hey, this is what costs us. And so when you go look at your bill this evening, okay, when you flip it through and take a look at what the different things that are charged by the utilities, and then you can look and see the difference in the electricity costs. And I've left this screen up on purpose because if you want to call a call center and ask them questions, they'll walk through your bill with you. Okay, that's what they're for. They'll walk through and talk to you about different stuff. And if you have really quirky questions, like you guys always have really unique questions, they'll actually reach out to someone like Jenna and I to give you answers. Okay, so like the woman who asked about the tiering, will I lose my NEM? What's going to happen with NEM 1.0? That's the kind of information we want to be able to share. So we need to know that to be able to tell you that information. So thanks for asking that really hard question.
Okay, Susan, well, that brings us to 7 o'clock, the conclusion of our time together this evening. I want to thank you for sharing all of your expertise. I know that there's a lot to talk about with NEM, and some of the questions outstanding still in the chat box can be answered by our call center. So I do encourage everyone to direct their questions about their specific systems to the call center or to their solar provider. So with that, Susan, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to stop the recording, and we hope you have a good evening. Please enjoy your dinners. Take care.